Well, I don't know if I'm live or not. I have no idea. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go to my site and see if I'm live. Anyway, if I am, hello. I have no idea. So give me a moment. Desktop. Let's see if you're there. So, yeah. So that's good. Let's go there and see if there's anything. All right. So here. Oh my goodness. Jaden Clapper, right? Claps. That's a hard one. Kimberly Brooks. Yes, you're on. I really have no idea how in the world I actually did this. So it doesn't bode very well for the next time because I haven't got any idea how I actually did it. Even though my good friend, Jim, from California, who's got his own YouTube show, very busy man, took 2 hours out of his time to show me how. Do I know how? Well, maybe by osmosis, because I don't know how in the world I've managed to go live. Plus the fact that we don't have the right title up. Test. Well, it's a test indeed. It's a test of my patience and fortitude, and yours too, I'm sure. So hi there. Let's see. So let me see if I can pop chat out. Yes, I can. Fern Farmer. Hello, darling. Esther. Elton. Kimberly. Jacqueline. I'll just use your first names. So, all right. Well, I'm so astonished that this is actually working. I have no idea what to do. I am very pleased that there were at least some of you who believed I could do this, because I certainly didn't. Since it is actually being recorded and there'll be people watching this later, and I'll change the title so that people know what this is. But you're here, and that's the only thing that matters. Is there's a few of you dear people out there. How are you all? I'm very well. Yes, I am live, and all is well with you, I hope. Hi everyone. Well, the first book in our belated book club chat, I hope, well, if you haven't read it, the beginning of it, that's all right. What I intended to do was to start with the first chapter so that it was interesting for you. The idea of these book club chats is to bring us together around subjects or topics that are more spiritually relevant to who we are, to how we live, how we think, how we feel, to approach spirituality from many different points of view, to use that as a catalyst for us to talk, for us to speak to one another about these subjects, or to let the subject open up other areas of psychological and philosophical inquiry. That is the idea. So we begin. And for those of you, technically, of course, who may be new to the idea, the concept, the first book is called the Hermetica, and this is it. If you're fresh to the concept, it's by Timothy Freck and Peter Gandy. It's almost like a reader's digest of the Hermetic philosophy, the philosophy of Hermes, which has its origin in ancient Egypt. Now, let's just begin, because it's been eons in preparation. So, the first chapter, Prophecies of Hermes. In this chapter, Hermes, and we all know who Hermes is, thrice great Hermes was considered in ancient Egypt to be all wise, so wise that he actually became a god, the god of Thoth, the god, the wisdom of the tarot as well, and ultimately astrology later on. So, in this chapter, Hermes describes the nature of pure philosophy, but laments that in future generations it will become all but lost. The philosophy of Hermes teaches, the philosophy that Hermes teaches, pardon me, as I would start, is not just a clever intellectual exercise. It's about focusing the mind in deep meditation on a tomb. In ancient Egypt, they referred to God as a tomb. And, cleverly, the authors have substituted the word God for the word atum in reference to God, so that we don't bring our prejudices, our individual philosophical prejudices, our religious prejudices about what God is to the table. But it's interesting, I already have a complaint this early in the book, because the authors, I believe, beautifully refer to God as a tomb, giving us the liberty of forming a new image of that entity. But throughout work, a tomb is referred to in the masculine, he. And certainly, masculine attributes are different from feminine attributes. And so, unconsciously, we may be assigning to the image of God masculine attributes, which is interesting because right at this time before the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century AD was when there was a real philosophical sea change in how the world, the universe, God itself, themselves, was perceived. And there was definitely a masculine overlay that maybe even started with Pythagoras, or perhaps even before him. A whole mind alteration as to how you perceive reality. So that's my complaint. How are you? I thought you might have something. Salutations, everyone, and welcome. Yes, I'm here. Remarkable. Yes, it is. It was getting comic, if not tragically comic, that it was taking me this long. I realize. Yes. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Esther, Georgia, Stacy. Hello. So that was my complaint. As a woman, the hair went up on the back of my neck when I thought, well, that's wonderful that you're referring to God as a tomb, but why refer to God as he? Because certainly there are many more, even deeper prejudices about what is masculine and feminine. So let's just put that aside and move on. All right. Such pure philosophy is about rising above mere opinion to experience directly the mind of the universe. Using the God-given gift of our own, he says, little minds, small minds, lesser minds, we can come to know the big mind that creates and maintains the cosmos in beautiful order. For Hermes, spiritual philosophy is not opposed to science, as it often is for us today. That's quite an understatement. The student of spiritual philosophy studies science as a form of devotion to God. And how far we've strayed from that. Through understanding the secrets of the natural world, he is overcome with a sense of awe and reverence for the Creator. He appreciates the perfect order of the universe, as if he were listening to a grand symphony in which every melody has been exquisitely combined to compose one magnificent harmony. That's beautifully put. Hermes prophecies, however, that this spiritual philosophy will one day become lost and confuse. Hermes, prophesizes, however, that this spiritual philosophy will one day become lost and confused. as it has. Speaking from our distant past, he uncannily describes the predicament we find ourselves in today. Pure philosophy has been replaced by the teachings of clever intellectuals with no mystical understanding of life. I love to read philosophy. Done so autodidactically by myself because it's interested me. And it's fascinating that in the current philosophical world of ideas, Mr. Wittgenstein dominates the scene with his sort of logical imperatives, dissecting language itself to sort of come to the root of human psychological motivations, you know. This, I think, is a beautiful example of what they're talking about right now, that philosophy has less and less to do with spiritual, inner spiritual phenomenon. Hi. Yes, hello, everyone. Talk. Yeah, hello. Hello, everyone. To continue. People have ceased to see the universe as a source of wonder and no longer revere it as a work of God. Spirituality has come to be dismissed by science as primitive superstition. The profound wisdom of the ancient Egyptians is thought of as a dead religion and as little more than an archaeological curiosity. Hermes foretells that Egypt, once the home of spirituality, will become a desolate place deserted by the gods. Out of compassion for future generations, Hermes writes his wisdom in books and orders them to be hidden, like a time capsule of truth. Hermes' vision waits for its chance to awaken future generations who are lost and bewildered by life. People such as ourselves. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the predicament we find ourselves in today. It's almost as if science that was inspired by the Hermetic doctrines, by these ideas of the universe having a knowable mind that could be understood by our mind. This is a philosophical point of view that opened up in the Renaissance an inquiry into the nature of physics, physical reality, how it's put together. But this has gone to such an extreme that the fundamental nature of this reality, which is spiritually based, is lost. And science has become our authority, our Godhead. And I think it's led to an enormous human suffering, psychological suffering, being detached from our source, from our spiritual source. So he cries out, Hermes, these revelations, these prognostications, really, as we do in the tarot, we forecast. These forecasts are deeply real. Even thousands of years ago, Hermes could see what was coming. In his own words here, the prophecies of Hermes, pure philosophy is spiritual striving through constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God. But speaking now in prophecy, I say that in times to come, no one will pursue philosophy with single-mindedness and purity of heart. Those with a grudging and ungenerous temperament will try and prevent men discovering the priceless gift of immortality. And that's what atheism does. You see, let's just pause there for a moment because it's very interesting to me. Right there. The sentence is quite beautiful. Those with a grudging and ungenerous temperament will try and prevent men discovering the priceless gift of immortality. You see, he's saying that by worshiping the creation of God, life, all the perceptual events, objects, the functioning of reality, turns our reverence, our awe turns inward and reminds us of our own immortality, infinity. We are the source of that which we see and perceive and live. We are that source. We're the smaller mind of God. Hermes continues, he says, philosophy will become confused, making it hard to comprehend. Wittgenstein is again a great example of this. Talk about difficult to understand. And once you do understand, it really is irrelevant. His entire thesis is completely hollow. This is what philosophy has become. I have a deep objection to it because I, like Hermes, understand that if philosophy were made to be the central subject of inquiry and learning, that it would change the entire nature of academics, of our social system, of our religious understanding completely. Yes. Hi there, everyone. Yes. Isn't that interesting? Good, 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 good. I can see your chats, by the way, because I can just look over like that and see them. And if you have anything to say about that, say it now. All right. All right. So he continues, it will be corrupted by spurious speculation. It will be entangled with bewildering sciences, physics, quantum physics, as an example of bewildering sciences. Like math, like arithmetic, music, geometry. Well, yes, indeed. Music, some brands of music, perhaps, but definitely there's been a I think it was Tesla who said something to the effect that physics has been railroaded, kidnapped by mathematics, arithmetic. It's no longer simply a beautiful way of expressing reality, but it's a substitute. It's become a substitute for the real. The student of pure philosophy studies the sciences, not as fanciful theories, pardon me, but as devotion to a tomb. Because they reveal a universe perfectly ordered by the power of number, because measuring the depths of the sea and the forces of fire and magnitudes of physical things leads to a reverent awe at the Creator's skill and wisdom. Because the mysteries of music bear witness to the unsurpassed talent of the supreme artist who has beautifully harmonized all things into a single whole, suffused with sweet melodies. To simply love a tomb in thought with single-minded singleness of heart and to follow the goodness of his will, this is philosophy, unsullied by intrusive cravings for pointless opinions. But I foresee that in times to come, clever intellectuals will mislead the minds of men, turning them away from pure philosophy. It will be taught that our sacred devotion was ineffectual, and the heartfelt piety and assiduous service with which we Egyptians honor a tomb was a waste without reward. So it's interesting to me, I don't know if you find it so, but right here is the divide between the Egyptian epoch and the Greek epoch. Again, I believe starting with Pythagoras. Pythagoras is an interesting character because he was half mystic and half scientist. His mother was a Delphic oracle, as we are Delphic oracles. So he still had one foot in one world of philosophical understanding. He studied in Egypt, but he already had the other foot in another world, and he was the bridge between these two, what I think of as matriarchal and patriarchal worldviews. So let's see. Yes, share. The current powers are busy trying to purposely erase all deep thinking about existence and source from all education. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They do it subtly too, because as Hermes mentions, music is rooted in the harmony of God, the harmony of our source, the beauty and purity of our source. And they're trying to eliminate the arts from the curriculum, from scholastic curriculum, from academic curriculum, in a subtle way, to remove even a hint of our spiritual, I'd even say our spiritual heritage. Yes, I absolutely agree, Cher. That's exactly what's going on in our modern world. And why works like the Hermetica, which have been preserved, I mean, if you think about it, over thousands of years. And though secret societies get a bad rap in our in our world, they nonetheless provide a great service for humanity, because during the dark ages, like our Middle Ages, when wisdom and this kind of understanding goes underground, they preserve it, never to be lost, and to have it there when the climate, the environment is much more friendly towards the idea, open towards these ideas. And it's coming, because even science, I loved when I was younger to read physics, the sort of Star Trek fantasy world that they would bring you into with quantum physics and black holes and the nature of time and time travel and the nature of probabilities. All of that to me was interesting, as a fantasy exploration. But I was always hoping that these currents of thought would bring science into the realization of the spiritual source of all that is, of all material phenomenon. The deeper thinkers in physics do understand that, and they leave they leave trails like breadcrumbs for you, so that if you're paying attention, uh, you realize that they know as well, but their paradigm is built on such uh, an atheistic model that they're not yet ready to make that kind of admission. All right. Where are we here? So, Egypt is an image of the heavens. So here Hermes is going to describe to us ancient Egypt, because these words come from a very lost era that we don't know that much about. Even we have some literature, some indication from what has survived, but we really don't know the type of society that thrived for thousands of years in Egypt before, again, the change in the era of Pythagoras. So Egypt is an image of the heavens, and the whole cosmos dwells here. In this, its sanctuary. That's beautifully put. But the gods will desert the earth and return to heaven, abandoning this land that was once the home of spirituality. Egypt will be forsaken and desolate, bereft of the presence of the gods. It will be overrun by foreigners who will neglect our sacred ways. He means the Greeks. This holy land of temples and shrines will be filled with corpses and funerals. The sacred Nile will be swollen with blood, and her waters will rise, utterly fouled with gore. Does this make you weep? There is worse to follow. This land that was a spiritual teacher to all humanity, humankind, which loved the gods with such devotion that they designed to sojourn here on earth. This land will exceed all others in cruelty. The dead will far outnumber the living, and the survivors will be known as Egyptians by their language alone. For in their actions, they will be like men of another race. O Egypt, nothing will remain of your religion but an empty tale, which even your children will not believe. Nothing will be left to tell of your wisdom but old graven stones, like the pyramids. Men will be weary of life and will cease seeing the universe as worthy of reverent wonder. Spirituality, the greatest of all blessings, will be threatened with extinction and believed a burden to be scorned. The world will no longer be loved as an incomparable work of a tomb, a glorious monument to his primal goodness. His primal goodness. See that? an instrument of the divine will, to evoke veneration and praise in the beholder. When I read this part that I just read to you, when I read this part, I thought of the works of Rudolf Steiner, because Steiner was a mystic and a scientist. He was a true Renaissance man. And he taught the initiation steps towards deeper mystical understanding and wisdom. And one of the preliminary steps is to evoke a sense of awe within yourself, reverent awe. When you're a child, for instance, and you have awe for your parents, their wisdom, you revere them, you are humbly devoted, lovingly devoted to them. This is the type of feeling that's necessary for a comprehension of our inner divinity. And these feelings of awe and reverence are scrubbed away from us, not even addressed in our academic life, in our family life, in our social life. And it ultimately leads to a sense of deep despair that you really are not able then to appreciate the wonders of life, the wonder of yourself, your senses, your experiences in life. So let me see what you have to say. Hi, Jackie, hi. Yay, yes, yay, indeed. I share. It seems, though, that all science eventually reaches an intellectual intersection where a source has to exist. The sacred geometry and math alone makes that apparent. Yes, it's true, but it's a rare breed of breed of people who investigate to those levels. What's commercially offered to us through the media, through our entertainment, through our social interactions is very, very distant from that. And even in the academic world, physics is not studied with this kind of reverence for pure spiritual revelations through the understanding of physics. It's not yet there. So I agree with you. And I've followed physics because I've always hoped for this, for science, which has now become our Godhead, now become what we worship and believe, that they would then be the leaders, leading us back to a spiritual reverence and understanding. But it's not coming. It's not coming fast enough. And many people are suffering from the consequences of it. So I'd like to, yes, love to you too. Love to you too. Whistle. Whistle. Let me continue. Egypt will be widowed. Every sacred voice will be silenced. Darkness will be preferred to light. No eyes will raise to heaven. The pure will be thought insane, and the impure will be honored as wise. Do you see any examples of that here? The pure will be thought insane, and the impure will be honored as wise. Can you think of an example of that? Anybody? An example of how the pure are thought insane and the impure honored as wise. Well, in my thinking, it has to do with those who, for instance, believe in supernatural things, who believe that the phenomenon of nature is not a mechanical phenomenon, but ultimately a reflection of a spiritual phenomenon. And they hold this in their heart and believe in it. And so phenomenon such as prayer, telepathy, prognostication of the future, all of these things are available to those who believe in their own spiritual essence. And the impure will be honored as wise. And who are the impure? I think of politicians as impure, manipulators. I think of those whose motivations are purely monetary as being impure. The rich, we honor the rich. We honor the famous. We honor those in leadership positions in politics, in our government. And we hold them above the rest. Whereas someone sitting begging in the street, whose mind is confused by the order, the demands of life, still maybe on a higher spiritual level through their belief than those we honor in society. It's absolutely the truth. It's as if everything is on its head, upside down. He says the madman will be believed brave and the wicked esteemed as good. Knowledge of the immortal soul will be laughed at and denied. Well, it isn't necessarily laughed at and denied, say, in Christianity or in the major religions. It is, of course, laughed at and denied in this secular world. But even religion doesn't provide the self-knowing, the empowerment of self-knowing, knowing that which God is also what you are, and that you are immortal. Religions often use, they portray good and evil and punishment for evil acts, and that you are not permitted immortality if you don't behave, if you transgress the rules, the laws. There is a need to adhere to higher spiritual laws, but it never costs you your immortality. And this is very important because we all make mistakes, and we all are on the path towards purification. Knowledge of the immortal soul will be laughed at and denied. No reverent words worthy of heaven will be heard or believed. So I, thrice great Hermes, the first of men to attain all knowledge, have inscribed the secrets of the gods in sacred symbols and holy hieroglyphs on these stone tablets, which I have concealed for the future world, that they may seek our sacred wisdom. Through all-seeing mind, I myself have been the witness of the invisible things of heaven, and through contemplation come to knowledge of the truth. This knowing I have set down in these writings. Hi there. Hello, warrior. Hello, John. Yes. Hello, Mr. Mensa. Hello, everyone. So yes, I don't know if you were here for that. A lot of people have just joined me. But the conversation has had to do with how low we've sunk as a civilization, how far we've abandoned our spiritual heritage. As I remember reading Pythagoras and the experiences he had in the temples, learning in the temples of Egypt. There was a temple, like every single street, there were temples beautifully ornamented with great thought to beauty, art. He learned in these settings and brought back with him, I believe, the knowledge of mathematics, geometry, which has actually become the enemy of spirit, of that which is spiritual. So it's very ironic what has happened, because Pythagoras, the father of mathematics, was deeply, mystically inspired. But again, as when was it? It was in the Middle Ages again. All of this knowledge went underground, and the Greek philosophical points of worldview became dominant. And in the era of the Renaissance, it became the primary ideological perspective as these works, like the Hermetic works, were found. And I feel that I'm very grateful that these works have not been lost, and that there have been secret societies that have preserved them for us. Let me read a little more so that you get an idea of all this. Just a little into chapter 2. Chapter 2, the initiation of Hermes. In this chapter, Hermes describes a mystical vision of his creation of the cosmos, upon which all his latter teachings were based. It's very interesting to me that the great sages of the past received their knowledge through this kind of mystical vision. As I said, in Islam, it happened in Islam. It happened to Moses. It happened to Christ. It happened to the 40 days in the desert where he received his initiation, really. It came back and he became the spearhead of a spiritual movement, as did Buddha receive it after meditating underneath the Bodhi tree, the meditation tree. It happens in, it's a common way of receiving deep wisdom. Hermes derives his wisdom from a dramatic, mystical revelation. While his mind is alert, yet still and empty, he hears God speaking to him. Hermes asks to be shown the true nature of reality. And suddenly, everything begins to change before him. In a mysterious vision, he witnesses the creation of the world, as did Muhammad. In a mysterious vision, he witnesses the creation of the world. This vision is not meant to be understood intellectually, but contemplated like images from a dream. However, we can explore a little of its deep meaning. Like a dream, Muhammad said that his vision came to him in a dream. And many artists on a smaller scale have received their inspiration in dream visions. Dreams are a beautiful conduit to our deeper spiritual wisdom, knowing, and understanding. Hermes' first experience is of an all embracing divine light. What does that remind you of? Which, as he watches, casts a shadow like dark, restless water. What does that remind you of? Do you feel Genesis in here? Later, he is told that this light is the mind of God. The dark waters are the unlimited potential out of which God will fashion the universe. This is a mystical vision of the first act of creation, remarkably similar to the modern scientific theory of the Big Bang. Well, I don't know about that. What do you think about that? This is a mystical vision of the first act of creation, remarkably similar to the modern scientific theory of the Big Bang. Do you agree with that? Let me look. Comment, anyone, if you agree with that. If you want me to read it again, I will. Just so, let me think. That's it. Yes. Yes, Cher. Exactly. You're so sweet. Right. All great leaders before began their public lives following a period of prayer and reflection. Now they start after a period of fundraising and focus groups. You're funny. That's right. That's it, Cher. It's unbelievable how far. Prayer. Yeah, prayer, even prayer has been bastardized. Asking for things, using it as a means to acquire something, and not to praise, and not to drop to your knees in awe of the wonder of it all. Yes, you're absolutely right. Hi there. Yes, well, Ev, make yourself at home. We're on our way. I don't know. We're live. I'm not tampering with anything. I'm not touching anything. It's just going to stay, hopefully, on. All right. What was I saying about the Big Bang? I like because I think the Big Bang is an interesting concept. Out of nothing, something exploded. Something must have exploded, but nothing exploded. So it's quite a mind tease, really. And because nothing exploded, there really isn't a need to explain nothing or to delve into what that nothing is from which everything exploded. There's almost well, we can't measure that. We can't weigh it. We can't mathematically describe it, that nothing. So we're not even going to address it. So again, it leads to this atheism, deep myth that random occurrences, a random phenomenon from that Big Bang created consciousness. Our consciousness is a result of nothing exploding without explanation. They don't need to explain because they say, well, that's as far back as we can see. That Big Bang, there, And they only see back that far through their mathematical theories, you see. So that's why, yeah. In duality, I both disagree and agree. Yes, that's right, right. So that's it. You cannot destroy or create. I know these are the contradictions. These are the contradictions inherent in their model because it's insufficient. It's devoid of the that which originated it, the Godhead. This spiritual source is gone from the entire uh, equation of the Big Bang. And so science itself um, is crippled. It lacks that umbilical cord back to its source, you see. Yes, warrior. You cannot destroy, create energy. Pharaoh, hi Pharaoh. However, I believe. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. However, I believe in God. Well, that's your only alternative then, is to have on one side the description of the universe, and because it excludes spirituality or the source, all you can do is just throw your arms up and say, well, all right, well, I have faith that God is naturally, because you know in a deeply intuitive way that that's your source. So it must be the source of the universe as well. But since you're not given any scientific agreement, or you're not supported in that intuitive feeling through science, you feel abandoned by it. You have to agree to it because it's the science is our Godhead, our leader. We look to it to give us the things that we use to keep us alive, comfortable. We don't have to hunt anymore. We go to the supermarket and we have our food. We don't have to build our own homes anymore. So we are reliant on the results of the scientific process. But deeply, on a deeper level, it's insufficient. And yet we look to it for uh, for the idea of what this is. What is this? And we identify ourselves also with the physical. Therefore, we say, what am I? Who am I? Where am I? What is it? And it doesn't satisfy these deep longings, you see, is very important. Let me continue here. I love this description here because, like Rudolf Steiner, who goes into great detail about his mystical experiences, it's a wonderful thing to be able to follow the path, the inner path towards these kinds of revelations, because we're all human and we all are composed of the same fundamental, essential spiritual matter. So when one of us, like Hermes or Rudolf Steiner or many others, Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, when they have traveled the road, we want to know what they experienced, how they experienced it. This birth, like my birth, like any birth, is accompanied by pain. And Hermes hears an inarticulate cry of suffering from the turbulent depths. The light then speaks a word which calms the chaotic waters. The word is like a blueprint that will organize the structured cosmos out of chaos. This word is the first idea in the mind of God. From which everything springs. Genesis. Initiated into the secrets of the creation, Hermes receives his divine mission from the Supreme Being. Only this knowledge, he is told, cannot save those who live in darkness. Hermes must become a spiritual guide to all mankind. So here, the initiation of Hermes. My senses, and he's speaking. This is what's so beautiful about this book, by the way, is that he's speaking to us directly. So the authors of this book have extracted from the Hermetica those parts in which Hermes is speaking to us directly. That's very beautiful. My senses were suspended in mystical sleep, not a weary, full-fed drowsiness. My senses were suspended in mystical sleep, not a weary, full-fed drowsiness, but an alert and conscious emptiness released from my body. I flew with my thoughts, and while I soared, it seemed to me a vast and boundless being called my name. Hermes, what are you looking for? Who are you? I asked. I am the way guide. I am the way guide, the supreme mind, the thoughts of Atum, the one God. I am with you always and everywhere. I know your desires. Make your questions conscious and they will be answered. That's interesting right there to me too, because that's one of the prerequisites in meditative. When you want to direct where your meditation, your inward focus will go, is that you delineate a specific intention. And you do this, in his case, by formulating the proper question. Even in the tarot, when I read tarot for others, the process is the same. When someone asks me for a personal reading, I tell them that they need to be very exact in their how they formulate their question, because they're not talking to me. They're talking to spirit. They're talking directly to the source. And the source responds. Oh, this it brings to mind also the gentleman who was the sleeping prophet. Oh, I can't remember his name right now. The sleeping prophet. Who was the sleeping prophet? Does anyone remember right now? I don't know why his name has left my mind. Does anyone know who the sleeping prophet? Yes, Edgar Cayce. Thank you. Thank you, Eve. Yes, Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce went into trance. And when Edgar Cayce was in trance, he had his wife, I believe, or was it his secretary? He had another person there to ask him questions. So to evoke from him, to provoke from him, to catalyze from him the specific answer. And his sources were multiple. They didn't come from only one area of his psyche. He had many areas of his psyche from which he culled this information, this inner data. But the question had to be specific and well designed. So, show me the nature of your reality. Bless me with knowledge of Atum, I begged. Suddenly, everything changed before me. Reality was opened up, opened out in a moment. Reality was opened out in a moment. I saw the boundless view. All became dissolved in light, united within one joyous love. Yet, the light cast a shadow, grim and terrible, which passing downwards became like restless water, chaotically tossing forth the spume like smoke. And I heard an unspeakable lament, an inarticulate cry of separation. This is the birth process, which always is attended by separation, a painful separation from spirit. The light then uttered a word which calmed the chaotic waters. My guide asked, "Do you understand the secrets of this vision? I am that light, the mind of God, which exists before the chaotic dark waters of potentiality. My calming word is the Son of God. My calming word is the Son of God." Can you see where religions agree on a very deep level about our spiritual source, how it was manifested, how it came to be? Perhaps these ideas have been twisted and turned throughout history till they don't even resemble their original nature. Hermes goes on, "My calming word is the Son of God, the idea of beautiful order. The word is about order, the harmony of all things with all things. Primal mind is parent of the word. Primal mind is parent of the word. Primal mind, God's mind, the mind of God is the parent of order. Just as in your own experience, your human mind gives birth to speech. They cannot be divided one from the other, for life is the union of mind and word. Order. Mind is what gives order. The senses give order to the world. Now fix your attention upon the light and become one with it. So, yes, Danster. I love your names out there. Danster. That's right. The fallen beings will capitalize on any truth released for their own ends. Yes. But I think that if we can correct our way of seeing at its very roots, I think we can see through all deceptions, through all manipulations, through the greed and the obfuscations of science and the corporations, the corporate world, all of them just using us as, well, human beings are very valuable. I mean, our minds, our ability to use our hands, to make things, to do things, uh, is absolutely a treasure. And that's our ability to produce is a treasure to be exploited by those in power. That's true, absolutely. So here we have Crowley. What do you mean, Crowley? Oh, no, not Crowley. Crowley is a strange reputation. Some of his work, he was the Golden Dawn. He was a member of the Golden Dawn. During that era of the 18th century turning into the 19th century, there was a resurgence of spiritual inquiry, which I think was a little bit waylaid by what they call spiritualism, which is, seances and trying to speak to the dead. And there was a whole society of people during that epoch that uh, treated spirituality in a sense only as a means by which to speak to loved ones who had passed, which isn't, that's certainly one aspect of it, but it was reduced to that, is what I'm saying. And Crowley was a member of many of these societies, secret societies that were in effect even competing with each other. I think Rudolf Steiner was a member of that kind of, was a member of one of these theosophy. He was a theosophist originally, and then he abandoned that, and he created his own movement. So there was a lot of competition back then for the interest that was surfacing in society. But it's since been, I don't know, taken over by New Age, a New Age perspective on it, which is good and bad. We'll go to that later. Let's see, subterranean Egypt is here. All right. Yes, body. All right, good. So we'll read a little more, and I don't want to fatigue you. We'll read to the very end, and then next time we'll do chapter 3. And you know that this book is also available for free on YouTube. So you don't actually have to buy it. But if you want to, of course, it's also available on Amazon. I think you can get it for $2 or something like that if you want to read it on your computer. Or you can just listen to me read it here. So let me continue. So Hermes continues the initiation. This is the initiation of Hermes continued. When he had said this, he looked at me, eye to eye, capital I to I, until, trembling, I saw in thought limitless power within the light to form an infinite yet ordered world, and I was amazed. I saw in the darkness of the deep, chaotic water without form, permeated with a subtle, intelligent breath of divine power. Atum's word fell on the fertile waters, making them pregnant with forms, ordered by the harmony of the word. The 4 elements came into being, combining to create the brood of living creatures. The fiery element was articulated as the constellations of the stars and the gods of the 7 heavenly bodies, the planets, revolving forever in celestial circles. I don't know if you know even our own cosmology, but right here, revolving forever in celestial circles is reference to how the stars revolve in a 24-hour period around the polar star, the North Star, every night above us in the firmament. They revolve like a clock, our clock. The word then leapt up from the elements of nature and reunited with the mind, the maker, with mind, the maker. Let me read that again. The word then leapt up from the elements of nature and reunited with mind, the maker, leaving mere matter devoid of intelligence. I don't know if matter is devoid of intelligence. What do you think? Do you think matter is devoid of intelligence? Or are the signs of intelligence still there, even in subatomic particles? What do you think? Celestial circles. How interesting, yes. Do you interpret the event of his as literal out-of-body experiences into 3D, or more of an inward journey during meditation? You mean Hermes or Rudolf Steiner or Edgar Cayce? All of that is internal. All of them. They're going back to the source. All of them. That's the idea of mysticism, is to go inward deeply and to explore the inner terrain, the inner psychic terrain we all have. We do this involuntarily when we dream. Unfortunately, we don't retain the images, the visions, the wisdom um, of those dreams when we awaken. Sometimes we do. It depends on many things. You can become more intentional about that too when you dream. That is, you can use your dreams like a vehicle. Program it, particularly just before you go to sleep. Program your mind. Ask it what you want, where you want to go, what you want to find out, what areas of your psyche you would like to explore. In the future, I think we're going to have something like I think Seth referred to it as dream art scientists. In other words, people who are gifted with the ability to retain the knowledge and information from the dream world and to bring it back to conscious awareness and to help us as a species with that wisdom and data. So, yes, Hermes. Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Inward. And from the inward, we then see the mirror image of reality reflected out through our senses. Yes, absolutely. I was overwhelmed with gratitude to the All Father who had graced me with the supreme vision. All Father. Again, the deity is referred to here as Father, and I think that it's already been set in the psyche of the civilized, the culture at this point, that God was male. And prior to the the flourishing of the Greek philosophical worldview, Egypt was under a matriarchal paradigm almost. The earth was the center, was the primal center of the cosmos, earth being female. The sun was secondary. And at the turn, right at Pythagoras, about 500 BC, there was a switch, a turn, and the sun became the center of the universe. And it's not by sheer chance that this idea became a part of how humanity viewed the world, viewed God. God became masculine and is masculine in the Christian model, in the Islamic model, even in the Buddhist. Even though there is no particular God, it has a certain perspective on it that was definitely male. It had obviously a male mystic that was revered, Buddha. So I'm saying that right here is very important to understand the evolution of our own way of perceiving ourselves, our reality, and God. So I was overwhelmed with the gratitude to All Father who had graced me with the supreme vision. In awe and reverence, I prayed, please never let me fall away from this knowledge of your being, so that I may enlighten those who are in darkness. Then, with his power in me, I began to speak. The aloof laughed at my words, but others knelt at my feet. I told them to stand and receive the seeds of wisdom, which I will sow in you with these teachings. So listen, men of clay. If you do not pay keen attention, my words will fly past you and wing their way back to the source from which they came. All right. All right. It's so hot here in Florida. Goodness. If you have any questions, if you want to add something here, please let's open up the dialogue if you'd like. Is there anything you want to say to me right now? I'll address it. I don't want to read much more than that because I want us to really contemplate what's been stated. It's a very beautiful opening to the symphony that he's about to present to us, the melody of the world that he's about to present to us after this. Hindu also, yes. Hebrew malt, yes. Everywhere, everywhere. But I think it's a necessary thing. As a female, as a woman, I I was made to feel very uncomfortable by it. Of course, when I was younger, I was very much interested in reading philosophy, Schopenhauer, and the existentialists, all of whom are extremely patriarchal. And their works were even a little bit insulting about the female mind and about the female perspective, the female, generally speaking. So I went through that whole period when I felt that I could never attain the kind of levels of intellectual understanding that these great thinkers had. So there was this early resentment in me for the entire patriarchal evolutionary trend in philosophy and in religion. But I've come to understand that perhaps, and I wondered what you think about this, that it's absolutely necessary in the overall evolution of us as human beings, what we are becoming. Because if you think of it, the role that science plays now in having divided us completely from our source, where we even deny the relevance and importance of consciousness itself in the equation of reality, of what is real. That this is a necessary process in our growth, in being able to examine reality as if we weren't even a part of it, as if it was a thing, an object to be dissected and understood at the cost of our soul's heritage, the heritage of our divine being at the cost of that. Because if we take the um, this dynamic where reality is now just an object of speculation, it does have a certain way of growing our psyche in that um, facet, shall we say. That entire facet of us grows and becomes strong. Even I think it I think that ultimately even leads to the idea of Satanism, that our mind alone can comprehend, create even reality, create life, because science, in a sense, tries to envelop all of it in understanding, pulls it, puts its arms around creation, mathematically, conceptually, giving it a position of total independence from God. You see, this is the rebellion that's classically told in various religious myths. Everything is about consciousness. Every story is about us and our conscious evolution. Everything is. And notice this. What do you think? I'm not a mother, but happy Mother's Day, everyone. Yes, happy to see you there. You're a little late. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I realize that these are deep thoughts about who you are as a being, and should not be treated casually. And we'll constantly go back to them. I want you to ruminate on what we've read and about the overlap of concepts here and those in Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and even science, the Big Bang, as they said. I feel that with this intellectual backdrop of ideas, we may get through this book totally within, a month or so, hopefully. I'd like to introduce you to some more modern mystical visions. When I was in my 20s, I read all of the works of Jane Roberts, who channeled an inner spiritual being, a part of her own conscious being, named Seth. And the works of Seth are enormously interesting because they're presented on a very scientific level, almost a psychological inquiry into who we are and to the nature of reality, but given very modern language. And so we'll contrast that as we go on with what we'll learn here of these more ancient sources of knowledge. They have to speak about the same thing. They're speaking about us and our consciousness. There's nothing more interesting in the world than our consciousness, the nature of who we are. Everything else is created by our consciousness. And we don't really even know what that is. We don't have any idea of who we are, why we are, where we are. We don't know any of it. Hermes, in this lament, prophesied about our era. He lamented it. And I agree completely that we are there. We are at the sort of the lowest rung. We've taken materialism to the final place where we even deny that we have consciousness, or deny the importance of consciousness, or that it's merely a after effect of brain functioning, shall we say, like that. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. So, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share or contribute, we'll do that. And if not, I've already been going for a while here, and I don't want to, these are the kinds of ideas that do exhaust you if you take them seriously. And so from there, next time we'll start at chapter 3, which is entitled The Being of a Tomb, the Being of God. And that will be a very interesting exploration, I think. So, is there anything else you'd like to say to me? I'll give you some moments right here as well if you just have any questions whatsoever. They don't even have to pertain to the subject right now, because they can, of course, and I'd love them to. But if you have anything else you'd like to say, I'm open. I think you're a peach too, Cher. Thank you for your comments. They were very, very good. Well, tomorrow I have to upload or work on a reading, but I might be able to do it either tomorrow or the next day. I'd love to be able to do it tomorrow. And if I do, then it would be around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I think I'm doing Taurus next. I have Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer for June up already. And so I'm always on a schedule to do these readings. And I have to keep somewhat up with that. And since I've had so much trouble, by the way, thank you, Jim, the vegan guy, for helping me to make this possible, even though I don't remember the process by which I made this possible. Hopefully I'll remember next time. But here it is. Strangely enough. Yeah, it's I don't know. I have no problem with deeper subjects. It's these technological subjects that baffle me completely. But here I am, and I'm grateful. Well, this is the idea. You see, I don't want to necessarily read and then go on and then close it up and just, that's not what, in my idea, book chat is all about. The wonderful book clubs that I belong to allowed you full exploration of the ideas, going back to ideas that maybe were baffling or needed more intellectual exploration. That's the way to do it. And then to engage in one another's opinions about it, to share. Because these ideas can spawn other ideas about the world we live in. They're not irrelevant. They're probably the most relevant to how you live your life, about the things that happen to you, about regaining inner power, inner spiritual power over your life. That's what the idea is. Perhaps, yes. So, yes, I just wanted you to get the idea of how we're going to conduct it. And maybe next time, if you read the third chapter before we get to it, maybe even the fourth, if we can find the time, I think we can do the fourth as well. If you read ahead and you formulate some questions, again, questions are very evocative of spirit. Your questions are keys, really, that open up both your inner world and mine. And that's how I read. That's how I tap in to your spiritual guide when I read, is that I just become sort of open and direct the question and believe, have total faith that there is going to be an answer, you see. All right. All right. So if no one has any, I love you all. Thank you, everyone. Let's see who we are. Mr. Mensa, Cher, Farrell, Nitram, Moses, Gonzalez Sanchez. Hello. Kim, Ev. Love you, Ev. See you on the beach. I think Ev is the only one who actually takes a yoga class with me on Siesta Key Beach. The weather has been hot, unbelievably hot. It's hot today. I know I get no sympathy from those of you in the north who say, well, I'm freezing up here, it's snowing. But here it's hot, and the beach has been hot. And yeah, thank you for Happy Mother's Day. I'm not a mother, although maybe I should consider my cat my baby. Yes, definitely. Yeah, Ferial. That's your name, Ferial. All right. All right. So what I wanted to mention too is the real problem I am having still with these live chats, broadcasting or publicizing them, because strangely enough, and James, who helped me with this, couldn't figure it out either. In that, when I set this as an event, pardon me, when I set this as an event, and I put a time in, the time that is displayed is not the time I set in. So I get a conflicting time in front of me in my live streaming page, conflicting with what's been broadcast to you, what's been advertised to you. So I had to scrub that off and just sort of start another new one. Hopefully, I'll work on it a little bit more and see if I can come up with a reason that that's happening. I don't know why. There's always a 3-hour difference. So if I set it at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m., it shows 6. So if I had to set it at 12 to show 3 p.m., I don't know why. I can't figure it out. Yes, it's quite beyond me. Anyway, all right, let's see what's going on here. Oh, the devil. Yeah, the devil. The devil, devil's an interesting myth. I no more believe in it than I do fairies. So notorious, yes, they have notorious fairies. You sympathize with me. Thank you. Thank you. It's hot. Well, I could use the air conditioning, but I dislike it intensely. It's unhealthy, and when you change your body's temperature too much, I think that you risk getting ill. So I can never risk getting ill because I have to teach 4 times a week on the beach. Oh, by the way, I've decided that this summer I'm going to go back to Hawaii, and I'm speaking with someone I knew about 15 years ago who owns on in Lahaina, Maui. It's a yoga studio, and she has promised me that if I were to come there for a month or two, that I could use her studio to do a live yoga class. I could broadcast a live yoga class from her studio. And I would love to do that because if I could stay there for a month or two, I know Maui very, very well. I lived there for almost 18 years and I know it very well. And there are so many beautiful places I would love to take you and show you and spiritually commune with you in nature there. There are waterfalls, there are hidden beaches, there are such beautiful places that I'd like to show you. So I've taken, I've told my students on the beach that July, August, and September I won't be teaching here. That will give me that time to perhaps go to Hawaii. So I'm talking to that lady, that friend of mine, about the studio work. And so once that's settled, I'll announce to you when I'll be there. And I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it to show you Maui like you've never seen it before. Okay. Yes, it would, wouldn't it? Live yoga would be interesting. And they would have students, some of the students would participate with me there. Um, but maybe I could even do a few outdoors because there are certain places I know of in on Maui where I filmed one of my videos next to a waterfall that I could go to because the conditions there are also quite beautiful and there's a canopy of trees that help to kind of even out the light. There's and since it's encased in this sort of cave like environment, the winds are also manageable. These are the things that mitigate against filming outdoors. So I might be able to take you there. I'd love that because that's one of my favorite places to teach. All right. So, goodness, that would be beautiful, wouldn't it? Aloha. Are they? Hi, Makado. Makado. They're from Hawaii, are they? That's beautiful. So, all right. Okay. Well, let's see. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you in a day or two with chapter 3 and 4 of the Hermetica, the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And let's go. See, end stream. There we go.